The snow fell silently. Each flake was a tiny, perfect star, landing on a world that had gone completely quiet. The city's usual roar had been muffled. Swallowed by a thick white blanket, Mahmoud walked through the sleeping streets. His footsteps were the only sound, a soft crunch in the frozen air. Each breath he took was a ghost, a plume of white that vanished into the night. He pulled his scarf tighter around his face. The cold was sharp. It bit at his cheeks and made his eyes water. He wasn't walking to get anywhere. He was walking to think, to let the rhythm of his steps untangle the knots in his mind. He looked up at the streetlights. They glowed with a hazy orange aura, each one a lonely sun in the swirling snow. The cold had a strange effect on him. It made him feel small, but it also made him feel clear, as if the frost was freezing his trivial worries, leaving only the bigger questions behind. He thought about the nature of cold itself. What was the coldest cold really like? His mind drifted to the ends of the earth, to the great white voids on the map, the North Pole and the South Pole, 2 points of ultimate cold, 2 places of absolute stillness. He had always pictured them as the same, mirror images of each other. One at the top of the world, one at the bottom. Both just endless expanses of ice and snow, a simple, perfect symmetry. But as the snow melted on his eyelashes, a simple question began to form in his mind. A question that felt suddenly important. Are they really the same? Or is that just a story we tell ourselves? His mind, freed by the cold, began to wander. It left the quiet city street and began a journey to the 2 poles of the earth. To understand the difference, his mind whispered, "You must first forget their similarities. You must forget the cold, the ice, the wind. And you must look at what lies beneath, the fundamental, hidden truth of their geography. The North Pole, the Arctic, is not a landmass. It is an ocean, a vast frozen sea surrounded by the continents of North America, Europe, and Asia. It is a world of water wearing a crown of ice. The South Pole, Antarctica, is the exact opposite. It is a continent, a colossal landmass, larger than the United States and Mexico combined. A continent of rock and mountain, buried under a mountain of ice. And it is surrounded on all sides by the immense Southern Ocean. One is a frozen sea fringed by land. The other is a frozen land fringed by sea. This single, simple difference changes everything. It is the secret key that unlocks all the other mysteries. Mahmoud's thoughts drifted first to the ice itself. In the Arctic, the ice is mostly sea ice. It is born from the frozen ocean water. It's a dynamic, breathing sheet. It grows in the dark winter and shrinks dramatically in the summer sun. It's relatively thin, usually no more than a few meters thick. It cracks and groans. Great plates of ice drift and collide, forming pressure ridges and open water leads. It is an ice in constant motion, a restless kingdom. Then his mind journeyed south to the ice of Antarctica. This was not sea ice. This was a continental ice sheet, born from millennia of snowfall, snow that fell but never melted, compacting over millions of years under its own colossal weight. This ice was not meters thick. It was miles thick. In some places, almost 3 miles deep. If the Arctic ice was a shifting frozen skin on water, the Antarctic ice was a static titan, a solid, unmoving glacier of continental scale. It is so heavy, It has pushed the landmass beneath it down by half a mile. It holds 90% of all the ice on planet Earth. It is a frozen record of our planet's climate, stretching back almost 1 million years. A library of time, written in layers of ice. The difference in ice, Explain the difference in temperature. Mahmoud felt the cold on his face again. But now he understood it had levels. The Arctic, for all its harshness, is moderated by the ocean beneath it. The water, even when frozen, is warmer than the air above. It releases heat, keeping the Arctic from reaching the absolute extremes of cold. An average winter temperature is around minus 40 degrees Celsius, a brutal, dangerous cold. But in the grand scheme of the planet, it is not the ultimate cold. For that, his mind had to return to the south. Antarctica is not just a continent. It is the highest continent on Earth, with an average elevation of over 6,000 feet. It is a high-altitude polar desert. There is no ocean beneath it to share its warmth. There is only rock and ice, rising high into the thin atmosphere. Here, the cold is of a different quality entirely. It is a profound, alien cold. The lowest temperature ever recorded on Earth was here. A staggering minus 89.2 degrees Celsius. A cold so intense, it can shatter steel. A cold so deep, it feels like the absence of all energy. The very definition of stillness. One pole was a harsh winter, the other was another planet, and on these two alien worlds, life had found a way. But the story of life was also a story of opposites. Mahmoud imagined the Arctic first. The kingdom of the polar bear, a magnificent, solitary hunter, perfectly adapted to a life on the shifting sea ice. He saw Arctic foxes with their pure white coats, reindeer and caribou, and in the waters below, seals, walruses, and great whales. It was a world where life from the surrounding continents ... had pushed north, adapting to the cold. It was a full, interconnected ecosystem. Then his thoughts flew south again, to the great white silence of Antarctica. Here, there were no polar bears, no land mammals of any kind. The continent itself is almost entirely sterile, too cold, too dry, too barren for life to take hold. The life of Antarctica is all at its edges. In the rich, cold waters of the Southern Ocean, and the creatures that define this world ... are penguins. Vast, noisy colonies of emperor and Adelie penguins, huddled together against the unimaginable wind. They live at the boundary of ice and sea. They are creatures of the ocean that come ashore to this desolate land only to breed. Seals and whales patrol the icy waters, but the land itself belongs to the ice alone. Polar bears in the north, penguins in the south. The two most iconic polar animals, existing in two separate worlds, destined by geography never to meet, except in our imagination. Mammoth crunched through the snow. He passed a row of houses, their windows dark. People. He thought about the human story of the poles, and here too, the contrast was absolute. The Arctic has been a home for millennia, the Sami in northern Europe, the Nenets in Siberia, the Inuit across Greenland, Canada, and Alaska. These are indigenous peoples who did not visit the Arctic. They are from the Arctic. Their cultures, their languages, their entire way of life are woven from the snow and the sea ice. Today, the Arctic has towns, cities, industry, and shipping routes. It is a part of our world, a harsh and remote part, but a part nonetheless. Antarctica has no such story. It is the only continent on Earth with no native human population. No one in human history ever called it home. It was the last continent to be discovered, seen for the first time only 200 years ago. Its interior was not reached until the 20th century. Its story is one of heroic, often tragic, exploration of men like Amundsen and Scott, racing to be the first to stand at the bottom of the world. Today, it remains a place without a country. It is not owned by any nation. It is governed by a remarkable agreement, the Antarctic Treaty, a promise made by the world to keep this continent for peace and science alone. There are no cities here, no towns, only a scattering of scientific research stations, small bubbles of human presence. In an overwhelming, empty wilderness, one pole was a homeland, the other was a laboratory. The streetlights above Mahmoud seemed to flicker. He thought about the light at the poles. 6 months of sun, followed by 6 months of darkness. But even this experience would be different. In the Arctic summer, the midnight sun circles a vast open sea. It glints off the water in the cracks between the ice. It illuminates the life on the surrounding lands. It is a sun that refuses to set on a living world. In the Antarctic summer, the sun is more alien. It circles a high, empty plateau of white, a desert of ice that stretches for 1,000 miles in every direction. The light is brilliant but sterile. It reflects off the endless snow with a blinding intensity. It is a sun shining on a world that feels like a moon. One light felt like a long summer's day. The other felt like the gaze of a distant star. Mahmoud's walk was coming to an end. He could see his own building just ahead. The snow had started to soften. The silence was breaking, replaced by the distant hum of an early morning truck. His mental journey was over. He had walked a few city blocks, but in his mind, he had traveled to the ends of the earth, and he had found that they were not the same. They were not mirrors. They were opposites in every way that mattered. In their geology, in their ice, in their climate, in their life, and in their relationship with humanity. The North Pole was an ocean of life and motion, trapped by the cold. The South Pole was a continent of death and stillness, defined by the cold. One was the top of our world. The other felt like the surface of another one. The cold on his cheeks no longer felt like just cold. It was a pale echo of the true, profound cold of the Antarctic plateau. The lonely streetlight above was no longer just a light. It was a reminder of a midnight sun circling a world of ice. The simple symmetry he had imagined was gone, replaced by a complex, fascinating, and beautiful asymmetry. The world was not as simple as it looked. It was full of hidden stories, hidden differences, waiting for a quiet moment on a snowy night, to be discovered. He reached his door. The knots in his mind hadn't vanished. The walk hadn't solved his problems, but it had given him something else, perspective, a sense of wonder at the intricate design of his own planet. He realized the world wasn't a set of simple answers. It was a web of infinite, fascinating questions. And maybe that was the point. Maybe the goal wasn't to find all the answers, but to learn how to ask better questions. He took one last look at the falling snow, and for the first time that night, he smiled. If you enjoyed Mahmoud's story and learned something new, don't forget to like, comment, and follow. And if there's a mystery you want us to explore next, drop it in the comments. Until then, stay curious.